Point of Order podcast, an inside look at California politics and the state legislature. I am your host, Assemblyman Josh Hoover, and very excited to be here for a special out-of-session edition of the Point of Order podcast, where we are talking to guests from all different industries, and we're really excited to be joined today by Matt Estipona with ABC NorCal. He is their Director of Government and Community Engagement. Just as a bit of background, the Associated Builders and Contractors is ABC. They were founded in 1950 with the belief that construction projects should be awarded on merit to the most qualified and responsible low bidders. And just wanted to have a conversation with you, Matt, a little bit about some of those issues and about ABC. But first, want to just say welcome to the program.
It's awesome, and thank you. I'm a big fan. I've been listening to you since last year.
All right.
A little biased, but this is my favorite podcast out of the Capitol.
That is awesome, man. Well, I appreciate that. That's really nice feedback.
You're welcome.
And I'm excited you're on today because, you know, when we're in legislative session, you know, we're always trying to keep up with the stories of the week and try to keep people informed of, you know, kind of what's going on in the state capitol. But now that we're out of legislative session, I think it's really important that we have opportunities to have some other conversations too, and kind of give people a little insight into some of the different issues going on, you know, in California as well, outside of the day-to-day grind of legislative session. So,
absolutely.
I also heard before we get kicked off, you were just telling me before we started, you're training for a marathon.
Yep, the ultra marathon.
An ultra marathon. Yep. So tell me what an ultra marathon is, and have you run one before?
Yeah, that's anything that's more than 50 miles.
That's crazy.
50 to 100 miles, and I've done 10 of them, and 5 of them have been in your district.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible.
Oh, thank you.
That is like, I mean, so do you time yourself? Like, do you have like a specific, like your best time that you're trying to beat or something?
For me, I'm just wanting to PR, finish, get to the end. But those who win, they end up finishing the 100 miles. Was the winner finished it in 12 to 13 hours?
100 miles in 12 to 13 hours. That's insane.
That is insane. I finished in 27 hours, and I was happy with that.
So you're running 100 though.
You're running 100.
So do you sleep, or like how does
you can't sleep? You sleep, you get kicked off.
Wow. Yeah. So you run for a day straight, basically.
Essentially, yes. It's definitely you start to hallucinate after a while at a certain point.
That is incredible.
Thank
so
you.
when you eat, I know, like, do you eat while you run, or do you just like take a break?
You learn how to be efficient, just eating goo, sandwiches, fruit, whatever it is that you can kind of take in the aid stations. And your district is a beautiful district to run in.
Oh, I bet.
Folsom to Auburn and back.
So it's Folsom to Auburn and back?
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's
pretty cool.
Thank you.
Well, hey, best of luck to you.
I appreciate it, Josh.
You know, if this was me running, I'd be terrified for my life. But it sounds like you've got it down.
Well, it's definitely scary with the mountain lions and the bears around there.
That's pretty crazy too. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Thank you.
But no, that's really cool. And so how do you hydrate by, like, do you wear a pack, or do you like?
Absolutely. You have to wear a hydration pack and carry some water bottles with you while you're running. You do get a little panicky when you start to realize you're low and it's hot and it's like, oh, I got to find the next aid station.
That's crazy.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
It's a lot of survival.
Hey man, yeah, that's pretty cool. And so when is this?
The next race I'm doing September 29th, and this is in Castro Valley. It's called the Dick Collins Fire Trail for 61.2 miles.
So how many of these do you do a year usually?
I'll probably keep it only to 4.
4 a year? That's still a lot. Sounds like a lot to me.
It's a lot. I'll throw in a marathon for fun.
Okay. All right. So, that's 27 miles, right?
26.2.
26.2. Okay. So that's pretty close. I've never run one, but you know, it's
maybe you're getting a lot of people are getting into it.
It sounds pretty cool. The craziest thing I've ever done on that front, it's not even close to that, honestly, but it was like Tough Mudder. Like, I did Tough Mudder like 10 years ago in Tahoe.
Wow.
Right. So it was like a 10-mile. But then you have all the obstacles and the climbing and the random ice baths and stuff.
That's tough. You go through mud and you get dirty. So.
Well, and that was back then. They've changed it a little since then, but that was back when they like electrocuted you. I don't think they do that anymore, but like
I didn't even know.
It used to be where you had to like bear crawl through like electrical like wires, and so they would zap you like while you're wet and like it was. I don't think it's probably good from a liability standpoint. So I don't know if they do that anymore.
That does not sound fun.
That was not comfortable.
But you did it. You won.
Yeah, I didn't win. I did finish.
Oh, congrats. That's still...
like, definitely didn't win, but it was a fun experience. So haven't done one since, but
we pick our poison. So that's,
yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That does not sound appealing to me.
No, hey, good luck with
Thank
that.
you.
I mean, that sounds awesome. I did want to ask you,
Absolutely.
so just to start, like, tell us a little bit about, just your background, I guess,
Absolutely.
and kind of what brought you, how long you've been in this role,
Yes.
kind of what brought you here. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I came from the campaign world. I used to work on campaign, state ballot measure campaigns. Actually, my very first job was here in the Senator Hotel with Bigger Castillo Fairbanks Public Affairs.
Nice.
We handled the dialysis ballot measure. I'm sure you've seen the multiple ballot measures.
Yep.
I was part of the first initial effort. Then I worked in the legislature for a few years as a communications director. And after that, I really wanted to pivot into advocacy and actually accomplish in terms of my professional career, win something in terms of advocating for a greater cause. And
that's awesome.
The Associated Builders and Contractors took a chance on me in terms I didn't have direct construction experience, but I could do the work. And I've been with them since January 2023. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Still learning. And one of the very first events I had, you came a little late.
Yes,
but you're
that's
still
right.
there.
I was late.
It's
That's
okay.
right. I was. No, that's great.
I appreciate
That's awesome.
that.
So 2023, I didn't realize it had been that long. So that's good.
Yes.
That's cool.
Like year one is learning, what the role is, and year two is actually now I can go forth and advocate for our members and for our workers.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about ABC NorCal, and just like for people that maybe don't know what it is at all, right? Like, I know I give a little blurb on it, but like, what is the mission?
Absolutely. And we are two fronts. We are a trade association. We have members, 463 members from Tulare County to the Oregon border, but also we are an educational institution. We are training the next generation of workers in the trades. We're approved to train in 5 apprenticeable trades: construction, craft labor, carpentry, electrical, painting, and plumbing. And really, our mission is to build the next generation of workers in California. You touched upon it, the merit shop philosophy. It's really based on construction projects should go to those who can build it the best and who have the experience to do so. And we are for fair and open competition. We are for cutting the red tape, and we are for keeping projects on time and on budget. And as the Director of Advocacy Government Affairs, it is my responsibility to make sure that our voices are heard and we're represented in the halls of power at the state government, the local government, at the federal government.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So just on that philosophy, right? So how does the philosophy, I guess, what is the philosophy landscape, right? Like how does your philosophy maybe differ for some other organizations, and how does that kind of play out on the day to day?
Absolutely. And it really is boiled down to in America, meritocracy. When you're in school, you're able to do the best you can, study, and you should be able to get the best grade possible. I view that parallel in construction, and it's a tough business. It's very cyclical. Contractors are always looking for their next job, but when they have the opportunity to bid, they put a lot of work, they put a lot of planning, they have a lot of experience, they have great employees that they've been around for years. And essentially every job, every bid is a risk that will I'll be able to get it, and we'll be able to provide for my workers and for my families. And I look at it through that way. It's you're studying, you're working hard to be able to get ahead and to provide.
No, that's awesome. On that point too, so obviously, a big part of this is providing opportunities to workers, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about kind of the mechanics of your apprenticeship programs.
Absolutely.
And so how would like someone that like, let's say is not sure what they want to do, but maybe want to go into construction, what's the path there?
Absolutely. And we have a great apprenticeship and outreach team. They're in the high schools, they're at community fairs, they're in any workforce development opportunity. And what a lot of people don't realize is that these programs are fully paid for by the state. The state, we like to say it's tuition free. The state fully subsidizes this in terms of if you were to enroll in the program, you will be able to, if you complete it, get a job depends each trade, within 5 years, completely debt-free. And what we found is a lot of young folks in the high schools, they don't realize this is a second pathway. we've been led to believe that only college is a pathway, but the trades are huge demand. There's a construction worker shortage. And when you tell young folks that you can be able to get it as a carpenter, as an electrician, making six figures depending on where you're staying, that's a very appealing
Yeah.
model. And what
Yeah.
apprenticeship trade is, you're essentially working, you're learning on the job, and you're getting paid for it. If you were to sign up with Associated Builders and Contractors, our main training facilities in Livermore,
Okay.
we also have one in Sacramento that we just opened, and you were also at the
Yeah,
ribbon
yeah,
cutting
yeah. I
last
remember
year.
that was a great spot.
That's what we're doing, carpentry and construction craft labor. Right now, there's two tracks in terms of in-person classes, but there's also Zoom options. And once you complete your initial testing period, you're able to be sent in the field. We have a great dispatch team that determines
Hmm.
where you are, where your skill is, and where you could be able to work with one of our members.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, and that's kind of the cool thing, right? About, I think, these jobs. First of all, having any opportunity that's debt free, coming out of, I mean, I really feel for kids that are going to college right now, and not because college is bad. I think college is great. I went to college, but I do think there's multiple paths to success, and I think that this kind of the growing trend where we're getting rid of the stigma of these trade jobs, I think is really
Absolutely.
important, because they are quality work that can actually, provide for a family, right? And so, I think that's awesome. But, these kids coming out of college, I mean, just like the loads of debt that they're in.
Absolutely.
And obviously some of that depends on where you go and what kind of aid you get and things like that. But the cost is just so incredibly high now compared to what it used to be. And I think at some point, something's got to give on that, right? And I think people are either going to start looking at other options, for careers, such as, construction or things like that. Or, something's going to have to give at the higher education level, where
Absolutely.
we start offering more affordable opportunities. I mean, I think our community colleges are doing really good work in that space. In California, you can go, first 2 years free,
Wow.
community college, which I think is amazing. And then you can transfer to a larger university. I think that's a great path. But, these UCs and these CSUs and even the private universities, like, I want to see more competition so that
Absolutely.
those prices come down, because I
Absolutely.
just think, yeah, it's gotten kind of crazy. But I love that about
Thank
this
you.
program, that, you're debt free and you get paid while you train,
Absolutely.
which is a huge, and there's so many careers where that's not the case, right? I mean, I know for myself, I started as an intern in the Capitol, right, a long time ago, and it was unpaid, and yeah, you were learning, but you needed a second job to pay the bills while you were learning that. And this really provides the opportunity to kind of take care of yourself and within that
Absolutely.
training experience, right? So that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thank you. And there's definitely our program has a lot of flexibility in terms of, if you were to complete one of the trades and you ultimately determine maybe I'd like to try something else, you're
Yeah,
perfectly willing to try your hand at that. And you could become a carpenter, and you could be construction craft labor, you could become an
yeah,
electrician. There's a lot of different avenues based on what you're comfortable with, what your best ability
yeah.
to do. And our members are fully supportive. When a member sponsors an apprentice, oftentimes after the end of the apprenticeship program, they end up working and staying with that company,
Wow.
becoming a
Yeah,
journeyman, and
yeah.
maybe they would ascend the ladder, or they would start off their own business. And what we really do is
That's
give them
awesome.
that choice, give them the opportunity
Yeah,
to make up what they choose to do so.
that's great.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, and to that point, right? Why does all this matter, right, to your average
Absolutely.
Californian? It's because I think in a lot of ways, obviously California has grown it's pretty substantially, but we desperately need to build things in California, particularly in the housing space. If I'm being honest, I
Absolutely.
think we are very much. You can just tell by the price of homes in California. In fact, I've mentioned this statistic a few times on the podcast, but for the first time in history, we hit, I think the median home price in California recently hit over $900,000. And you think about, I mean, we're talking about college debt, but you're thinking about affording the California dream, which is home ownership, right? And making, buying a home so that you can raise a family, or even not raise a family, just live in a home, right? And build
Mhm.
generational wealth, right? That
Absolutely.
buying a home is the key to that. And it's so difficult in California now. I think a lot of that comes down to supply, making sure that we're increasing our housing supply in California. And then I know that obviously there's a lot of other commercial construction as well that is happening too. But what are your thoughts on, like,
Absolutely.
what can we do better as a legislature, as a state, to cut that red tape, to ensure competitiveness, right, in the marketplace, and just to build stuff in
Ab-
California?
Absolutely, and great question. Thank you. The main issue advocacy that we, the Associated Builders and
Yeah.
Contractors, especially in Northern California, advocate against are project labor agreements,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
are essentially collective bargaining agreements between an elected body, be it the state at the local city council level, and a contractor. And what we've encountered in city, locality after locality, is these project labor agreements, these PLAs, oftentimes limit competition because you have contractors, such as our contractors, merit shop contractors, who do not want to bid on these jobs.
Mm.
We've seen in cities where there's a blanket project labor agreement for large projects receive only one or two bids, and these bids are 80%, 50% over the engineer's estimate,
Yeah.
and they have to reject the bid, put it out to rebid, or reject the project labor agreement and have it open to open bid.
Mm.
And this directly shows when you limit competition, you drive up costs.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
also the case where when you have a locality that implements a project labor agreement, there's a cost associated with implementing that in terms of the
Right.
administrative cost just to the city, the county, but also to the contractor. Now you're having contractors have to determine how they can comply with this. In addition to that, we've seen at the local level, the California Environmental Quality Act has been used as a tool to essentially force developers to sign project labor agreements. It's essentially
Mm.
what we call green mail instead of blackmail. And
Mm.
when you have these dueling effects of limiting competition and forcing people to sign agreements, and in fact, kind of driving up the costs, it's a boondoggle, and we are advocating it at the local level, but it's unfortunately at the state.
Yeah.
It's happening a little bit. There's a Senate Bill 984 that primarily we've been advocating against that would have put a blanket PLA on projects $35 million or more,
Mm-hmm.
originally for 4 state agencies. Two of those agencies were removed, but now it's only going to go to the Judicial Council and the California State University system.
Mm.
You have the CSUs that are dealing with a deficit. Is this the best time to implement a policy that has been shown at the local level to limit competition and drive up costs?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really interesting, right? And I think, it's interesting because even within the labor union space, there are different opinions on project labor agreements, and I mean, largely they're supported, but there's just different opinions on whether that should be statewide policy, or whether it should be determined at the local level, or whether it should even exist, right? I mean, so I know there's a lot of different thoughts on that. I think it is interesting, right, from a competitiveness standpoint. I've always felt like as in my first couple years in the legislature, that you need to be really careful as a governmental body, right, or a legislative body, whether you're local, state, national, to your point, limit competition, right? And I think at a certain point, you do want everyone to be able to bid on jobs, right? And I think to that point, like, organizations with different philosophies, right, should have the ability to all compete for all the things we need to build in California, and see what shakes out, right?
Yes.
And I think it gets a little difficult when government starts to put their thumb on the scale,
Absolutely.
and kind of lean it in one direction or another. And so I really do think that we need to be careful as lawmakers, right, to make sure that we truly do have a competitive marketplace. And I think also just in general, it's the best way to build stuff in
Absolutely.
terms of, there are not enough workers, I don't think, in any single
Yes.
organization or space to build everything we need to build in California, right? And I think there's so much work that needs to be done, on the housing side, on the commercial side, that you really need all hands on deck across the board.
Absolutely.
And so how do you best do that? I think that's the question I ask a lot of the times
Absolutely.
when we're debating these bills and things like that, It's like, how do we best do that in California? So I think that's a really
Thank you.
interesting breakdown. And yeah, no, I appreciate I appreciate, just kind of explaining that.
Thank you.
What would you say? So, there is a chance we're going to have a lot of different people on this
Yes.
podcast, right? And we might have someone from the labor space to
Absolutely.
chat about their perspective on it. I mean, what would you? I haven't had them on yet, so I don't know what
Yes.
they're going to say. But I know some of the things you said they might disagree with on the PLA side. But what would you say are the biggest reasons why the PLAs are increasing costs on consumers?
Absolutely. And it really boils down to what is the initial intent of a project labor agreement. It's essentially sold as a way to ensure projects are built,
Mm-hmm.
safety, expand the workforce,
Mm-hmm.
and those things are all great, and they could be accomplished through a standard agreement,
Got
standard
it.
contract.
Okay.
It does not have to be done through a project labor agreement. And the real root cause is 85% of the construction workforce in California are non-union. They're not part of a union.
Say that again. You said 85%. Okay,
85%.
that's a big number.
That's a
Yeah.
huge number.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a lot of people
Yeah.
realize that
Right.
in this
No,
space
that's
and what I'm
yeah.
realizing. But why do we have a lot of government agencies and bodies and localities sign PLAs if you majority of the local workforce
Right.
is not part of a union?
Yeah.
And what we've seen, it's essentially a tool or a way to increase membership,
Sure.
to
Sure.
compel people to join. And we do not think that's fair. We think that
Yeah.
people, as mentioned earlier, should have their own choice whether or not
Right.
to join a union or not, to be part of a labor organization. And that's what a lot of our members are: small family owned businesses, independent contractors that have been around
Yeah.
for decades, for years, and they pay their employees well, and they choose not to join a union because they're
Right.
making it out on their own.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And I think to your point about the percentage, right, of the workforce, I think that is also where we get to, these policy discussions in the legislature. And it's been interesting to watch because on housing especially, we've had some very bipartisan disagreements where you have people on both sides of a lot of these bills. But the fight over, do you pass policy that limits who you can hire, right? Because and there's a spectrum of what you can do. I mean, PLAs are one thing you can do.
Yes.
Some policies have actually attempted to go even farther and limit certain jobs to specific categories or classifications. And I think it does get to the point where you're like, hey, we have to acknowledge that the ultimate goal here is to build things for
Yes.
Californians, right?
Absolutely.
And to the greatest extent that we can, do it in a way that consumers, it doesn't overly impact consumers from a cost standpoint. And sadly, I think right now California is one of the most expensive places, if not the most expensive place to live in California. Or, I'm sorry, to live in the United
Yes.
States, right? So, and I would love to see that change
Absolutely.
because you look at all these. We were talking about college kids. I mean, how many college kids end up settling in California, right? Like, I mean, I've got 3 kids. I would love to see them stay in California, but I wouldn't blame them if they decide, I can get paid a decent wage in this other state and the costs are a lot cheaper.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go raise my family out there, and I think whatever we can do as lawmakers to say, hey, we want our kids, we want our best talent, we want, the kids that are being raised here and trained and educated here, we want them to live here and stay
Absolutely.
here, right? So how can we make that more feasible? So,
And just a good point that
Yeah.
you're not apples to apples comparison in California. I'm born and raised in San Francisco. It's the best state in the country.
there you go.
But a lot of states where they've banned project labor agreements are states where it's easier to build, it's cheaper to buy a house. Not exactly direct correlation, but we're a
Right.
national, ABC is part of the National Association. We have 69 chapters, but we've seen in states such as
Yeah.
Texas that have banned project labor agreements. It's easier to purchase a house, it's easier to buy a house, it's easier to
Interesting.
move.
Yeah.
There's a direct correlation. When you have these policies, why does the cost of construction go up? And
Hmm.
it's interesting, and I would love to, as you talked about, I'd like to have my kids also stay in California,
Yeah.
but to live in San Francisco, it's $1 million. To even live in
Man.
Sacramento is almost
Yeah.
$500,000.
Would you ever, I mean, this is total personal, but would you ever go back to San Francisco at this point? I mean, is that something you want to do?
I would, but my family's still there.
That's cool.
We were
Okay.
lucky that they
Yeah.
were able to buy a house back when it was
Yeah.
really affordable.
Yeah.
But it's a tough area
It's hard.
to a lot of my friends I grew up with aren't there anymore. They left.
Yeah.
It's hard
Yeah.
to set up roots, and
Yeah.
it's the greatest thing about the city is probably just the sights and the beach.
Yep.
I mean, Outside Lands was this past weekend.
Oh, that's right.
It's a
Yeah.
fun time to be out there. So there's always something going on. But in terms of directly laying down roots and purchasing a home, I think I'm they say a West Sac, best Sac. So,
I love it.
you know.
I love it. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, we're seeing that a lot in my district too. A lot of people from the Bay Area moving in. And if you're listening and you're from the Bay Area, we welcome you. And we get it, right? I think I completely understand. But Sacramento is getting more expensive now too, right? Or the Sacramento region, right? It's not it's certainly not Bay Area levels, but it certainly has gotten more expensive to purchase a home here too. And I think you're seeing that in a lot of places across the country.
Absolutely.
A good friend of mine was looking for a house. I was trying to get him to move or to live in the Sacramento region, and he ended up buying something up in Redding
Oh, wow. That's
because
even further.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty far. And they've got family up there, so it works. But they were making the decision between the two places, right? Sacramento and Redding, and I would argue that Sacramento has more going for it from a just from a kind of like stuff going on perspective. Although maybe you could argue that
Absolutely.
between San Francisco and Sacramento
No.
too. But you just get more for your dollar in the North State, right?
Yes.
And I think people make these decisions a lot, and when it's a close decision, a lot of times it does just come down to that, right? What is the most affordable? So
Absolutely. And just North State's great. We have
Yeah.
members in Humboldt County.
Love it.
I'll be making a trek up to Humboldt in next month.
very cool.
It's a very
All
cool
right.
part of the job that I get to travel throughout the
That's
territory
awesome.
and meet with our members and meet with our folks and meet with our apprentices. It's a great
That's awesome. I
opportunity.
love it. Well, hey, thanks for
Yes.
chatting about ABC. I
Yep.
appreciate it. I think I think that was a great conversation. And look forward, again, like a lot of this time of year, the podcast is kind of about educating on and bringing in different perspectives,
Yes.
and I think that's we are going to try to have different people. We're going to have
Absolutely.
some Republicans, some Democrats. We're going to have some, different organizations on. And we really like when we're at a session, I really do want to bring in some different perspectives so that people can kind of learn about different things. But before I let you go,
Yes.
like we got to talk
Yes.
because when we chatted a few months ago about doing this podcast, we both realized that we're both huge fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, so we got to chat some Marvel before we let
Yeah.
you go. So
I brought my Marvel bag.
you
too.
got your Marvel
That's
fanny pack, dude.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Thank
dude.
you.
That is awesome. Yeah. So like, I love Marvel. Obviously, my kids love Marvel. It's funny. During COVID, so I've always, my wife and I have been watching the Marvel movies since 2008,
Wow.
when Iron Man came out or whatever, the first one. And we didn't have kids in 2008 actually, which is kind of weird.
Wow.
But like our kids have been born since then, obviously. And during COVID, we had all this downtime. And so we just were like we're going to go through just, every movie chronologically, watch them all during COVID.
Wow.
And we had a great time. It was awesome. And
You're crazy for that. That's awesome.
and since then, my kids have rewatched a number of the movies multiple times, and they've released like 10 more
Yeah.
since then. But just huge Marvel fans. In fact, I should have brought it in today. We actually bought Trivial Pursuit, like Marvel edition,
Wow.
with like for the Infinity Saga. So like not the new movies, but like the the first kind of few phases. And and I will be honest, it is really hard. It's really hard. Like Trivial Pursuit just really dives into the like really little
Wow.
details, so it's pretty funny.
I'm about to get that for myself. To
It's
test myself.
pretty cool. So we might have to play some
Yeah.
time. But I put a list here of every Marvel movie that has come out since 2008. I've ranked my top 10. So I don't know if you were able to do that.
Yep.
But if you got that, I think maybe let's go through maybe 10-1.
Yeah.
Let's go 10-1 and compare our top 10s. And I
do
want
it.
to see how they match up.
Let's do it. You first.
So I will start with my number 10, which is Captain America Civil War. Now, this one was a little weird for me because I love the movie. It's not my favorite Marvel movie, but like I just love the airport scene, you know, where like you got the Captain America team and the Iron Man team fighting it out. And you got Spider-Man in there, right? Tom Holland, Spider-Man. So I thought it was a super fun movie. But yeah, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is Ant-Man.
Okay, see that was close. That was close.
Honorable mention there for you.
Yeah, I got it under honorable mention, Ant-Man. I loved the Ant-Man movies though. Just like I think I read a description of one of them which was like they're not so much like superhero movies, or that first one at least. Is it's like a heist movie.
Yes.
Right? With like some, you know, superhero vibes, but
and set in San Francisco.
And set in San Francisco, which is super cool.
Yes.
And I love Paul Rudd. And I just thought he brought so much good comedy to the MCU. So
very much, and just the whole power of shrinking. They did a lot of innovative things in that.
Yeah,
movie.
that was pretty neat. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So the Ant-Man movie's great. So.
Minus Quantumania. We don't speak of that anymore.
We do not speak of Quantumania. I actually put that on my least favorite list.
That's definitely
like,
there for me too.
That was a rough movie.
That was bad.
I mean, it's to the point where it got into like territory. We're like, all right, this is getting a little weird. They're like sitting at a bar, like in the quantum realm. I'm like, all right.
With the broccoli guy?
It's like, all right, we're getting a little crazy here. But that first Ant-Man movie was awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, so number 9, I've got. Why don't you go first for number 9?
Number 9, I have Doctor Strange.
Okay, see, I didn't have it in my top 10, but I love Doctor Strange. So what did you like about the first movie?
I definitely think, and a lot of people criticized it, but his story and Iron Man's story, very similar parallels.
That's true.
The only difference is that one could say that Doctor Strange is a little bit more altruistic than Tony Stark, in that he realized to be the Sorcerer Supreme, he has to sacrifice everything and has essentially no life. He's just chilling by himself in Camartage.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's so funny. Like, I got like Batman Begins vibes from
That's a good one.
Right, from Doctor Strange, because like the whole journey to like find your
right, huh?
You know what I mean? It's like there's a
yeah.
lot of similarities, and obviously that's DC, but I loved the Batman, like the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. So like I did think the Doctor Strange like movie was really good. I didn't rank it, but I definitely is a great movie. I will say some of these I ranked based on what I go back and rewatch the most.
Yes.
And I will say I don't rewatch Doctor Strange that much. But I loved him in the later movies, and his character was so critical to like
big time.
to like the future, you know, the movies. So
absolutely.
That's a good one. Mine was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm just like, my list is like really, really more about what movies my kids probably like the most. But I love the second Guardians. I thought it was really funny, and with Baby Groot, and you got like all the different comedy and the characters, and Drax, of course, and just like running it back. I just think that whole dynamic was awesome. So
the Guardians movies are definitely the ones where you can cry. You feel like
you laugh and you cry. Yeah, exactly. So number 8, I've got Captain America: First Avenger. So the first Captain America movie. You know, honestly, I felt like the most entertaining of movies, but really like important for the story. So, and I'm a huge Captain America fan. So I'm just like, that's probably my favorite Marvel character. And so I really enjoyed First Avenger.
He's really was one of the linchpins of the MCU. It's sad to have seen Chris Evans go.
Yeah, that actually is really sad.
Yes.
And I hate to say it, but I watched the Marvel show on, what was it, Disney Plus, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it was just so terrible to me. I thought it was awful, and it was important because it is, spoiler alert, so turn it off if you haven't watched it. But there's going to be a new Captain America movie coming in the next couple years. That's a different person, and that's when it's revealed. But that's the whole point of that story, was revealing the new Captain America. But the show itself was just, I don't know, I was not into it. I was like, this is not a good show.
They definitely did not. They did not do anything cool in honor of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, what was your number 8?
Similar to you, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
All right, love it. Yeah, that's a good one. Number 7.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Okay, dang it. That's a great one.
What did you
So
get?
I had that in honorable mention too, and it was for a minute when I was playing with these. It was in my top 10. And of course, like epically, right? This has the Spider-Mans from every previous Spider-Man movie, which I mean, I don't know. For me, especially as someone that like watched the Tobey Maguire ones in theaters, like my kids didn't even know those existed.
Wow.
You know what I
Oh,
mean?
my
Like
God.
we showed it to them later on. But they're just like, oh, there's all these different Spider-Man movies. My daughter loves the amazing, like the Andrew
wow.
Garfield
Okay.
Spider-Man
Interesting.
ones. That's like her favorite Spider-Man. Or actually, Tom Holland's her favorite. Let's be real. But, she really likes Andrew Garfield too. My wife loves the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Wow.
I know, right?
He's like the
It's
least out of the 3.
I know. Usually, like he's the least popular, but like my wife's like loves Andrew Garfield in general. So any movie that he's in,
He's probably the best actor of the 3.
oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. So, and then obviously the Tobey Maguire ones were super fun, and I felt like that was really when the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was really like at the beginning of the superhero thing.
Yes.
Right? Because you had all the like cheesy Batman movies and Superman. Well, I shouldn't necessarily call Superman cheesy, but like you had all the older superhero DC movies back in the 90s and the 80s and stuff. But like the really like big time superhero movies, like a lot of that really started with like Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
So,
I remember.
No Way Home was awesome. Like that's such a great one.
And just bring back, spoiler alert as well, William Dafoe, Doc
yeah.
Ock.
Oh yeah,
that
that's
was,
right. Yeah.
That was amazing.
I mean, all the old villains, the old Spider-Mans. It was Jamie Foxx in that one
Jamie
too?
Foxx was in there too.
That's
Yeah,
crazy,
that's
man.
crazy.
So, yeah, just like I don't know how they did that.
It was the right movie at the right time. The pandemic, it was still 2021.
Was
and
it that long ago?
Yeah, it was that long
That is
ago.
incredible.
But
I feel like, yeah, that's amazing to me. I didn't realize it was that far ago. So, yeah, great movie. Probably should have been in my top 10. Number 7 for me was the original Guardians of the Galaxy. I love that movie. I think it's, yeah, it's just really brought a new flavor to the MCU, right?
Absolutely.
And just all the comedy and them kind of figuring things out and coming together was just hilarious.
I think that year 2014 when Guardians and Captain America Winter Soldier came out, that put the MCU on the stratosphere.
Yeah.
Two totally different things.
No,
but
you're right. Yeah, because that
general
was
audiences.
that was in phase 2. So that was like 2014. I didn't again, like it doesn't feel like
10
it was
years
that
ago.
long ago,
Wow,
man.
a decade ago.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I think it really they really hit a stride there for sure. So that was awesome. And of course, they got incorporated later into the other movies, which was awesome. Number 6 for me was the original Avengers movie, which seems a little low on this list maybe, but obviously just like the conclusion of phase 1 basically, and all the initial, or well, maybe not the conclusion, but like the initial phase of Iron Man and Hulk and Thor, Captain America, and then you just have this Avengers movie. I mean, that was pretty awesome. That was the first time like everyone got to see them all in the same movie.
In history, cinematic history.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I mean, I think it's pretty hard not to love that movie. And like shawarma.
Oh my God. That's
If
me hungry.
anyone hasn't seen it, you're probably not listening at this point. So you probably have already tuned out. But at the end, when they eat shawarma together, hilarious. So yeah.
My number 6, I had the one that started it all, Mr. Tony Stark himself, Iron Man.
Iron Man, great one. Yeah.
Classic.
I mean, come on, that's amazing movie. So
and it holds up well.
It really does
CGI.
hold up well. Yeah, it definitely feels a little older now.
Yes.
But it's still a fantastic movie. Fantastic like start to the story. And then of course, Tony Stark just ruining the superhero like thing, which is to keep your identity a secret. And at the end of the movie, he's like, "Yeah, I'm Iron Man."
I forgot that.
I mean, no other. I mean, that's just not a superhero thing.
Yes.
So from movie 1, they were breaking the mold.
Absolutely.
Like everything. So yeah, great one. What was number 5 for you?
My number 5 for me was The Avengers.
Okay, yeah, Awesome. At number 5, I had
Yeah.
Black Panther.
That's a cultural
Um,
touchstone.
I mean, come on. I don't know. It's like, what do you say about Black Panther? I actually didn't love Wakanda Forever quite as much, the newer Black Panther
Yes.
movie. Part of that's hard because, you don't have Black Panther, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like, I mean, that whole real life story
Yes.
has made these movies so incredibly sad. And like going back and watching the movies now, it is really sad. But that Black Panther movie, that first one was just incredible. And my kids to this day, I would say they rewatch that probably in the top 3 or 4,
Wow.
like just in terms of movies they go back to a lot. They just love Black Panther.
And the whole supporting cast, not just Black Panther, but you had Michael B. Jordan, the villains.
yeah.
It was great. Oh my
Michael
God.
B.
wow.
Jordan, man, he was great as
was
a
a good
villain.
villain.
That was
Really good
great.
villain.
I wouldn't be a role that I would thought because he's so lovable.
Yes.
And like everyone in my family loves Michael B. Jordan, but yeah, it was really cool to see him in that role. So, number 4, I have Iron Man. So
Wow.
mine's a little higher. What about you?
My number 4 and my top 5 are all similar vein, but number 4 for me is Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron.
Yes.
Okay. So I love that movie,
Yes.
and I was looking. So I have it in my honorable mention as
Yeah.
well. But I was looking through a lot of rankings, and even like Rotten Tomatoes and all that stuff. I feel like it doesn't get a lot of respect.
No, you're absolutely right.
But I love that movie. I love the villain.
Yes.
the Ultron villain. What's
James
his name?
Spader.
Yeah,
great
exactly.
Great turn.
Just great voice and just villain for that. Even though you never see him.
Yes.
And I think that movie's underrated. And my favorite scene in that movie, you probably know what I'm gonna say, but it's like the party scene where they're all trying
Yes.
to lift Thor's hammer, right? And Thor's like, "No, of course you can't lift my hammer. Only those who are worthy can lift Mjolnir or whatever." And like Captain America
Oof.
just inches it a little bit, and Thor freaks out. It's just one of my favorite scenes in the whole Marvel universe.
And they're just hanging out. They're literally just hanging
Yeah.
out, just getting hammered,
Just-
literally.
Yeah,
You know, getting hammered.
exactly. So that was hilarious and set the tone for Endgame too,
Oof.
which was awesome, right? So I love that movie. I think it's underrated. What do you got at number 3?
Number 3 is Endgame. Endgame for me.
Okay, wow,
Yep.
Endgame number 3. All right,
How about you?
I've got Thor Ragnarok.
That's such a good movie. So
Yeah,
hilarious.
Which I mean, just the funniest I think of all the Avengers movies. So yeah,
they really hit lightning in a bottle with that one.
They really
great.
did. And like, I don't know, like I wonder, I feel like that movie was the one that a lot of the jokes you really needed to be in the know on the Marvel universe, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because so many of the jokes reference like so many like things that had happened throughout the entire storyline. But it really was like peak Thor for me in terms
It
of
is
just like
Thor.
comedy, and it has a lot of Hulk in it, which is super
Yes.
funny. Like just so many of the like funniest Hulk moments are in that movie, and obviously it introduces a lot of new characters, and like Jeff Goldblum
Oof.
is in that movie. Like what? It's just hilarious.
Man, you're making
So-
me rethink. I should have put Ragnarok on there too. I completely forgot about it. There's so many good
Oh,
movies.
you forgot about Ragnarok? Oh, no.
It's so. It's just they try to redo it again with Thor: Love and Thunder, but that didn't.
Thor: Love and Thunder wasn't quite as good. I mean,
Yes.
it was fine, and of course, Natalie Portman came back for
Yes.
Thor: Love and Thunder, which was awesome. But Ragnarok is really hard to top. I mean, I think it was a really funny one. So, and you said so number 2 for
Oh,
I've got Infinity War,
Oh, wow.
which obviously so the pre-Endgame.
Yes.
What about you?
My number 2 is your number 10, Civil War.
Okay, all right.
I
Wow. Okay,
really-
so you have a really high.
I
All right.
watched Civil War. Like that's one of the ones
Nice.
to rewatch just to rewatch. But
Yeah,
the fact that just the turmoil between Tony Stark,
and Captain America.
oh,
yeah.
that
I
really
know.
was
Steve
heartbreaking.
Rogers, I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was that was the movie that got really into because there was like a phase, which I forget which one. I guess it was like phase 3, and to a certain extent phase 2, where it really got into the geopolitics of the Avengers,
Yes.
right? And the movies just got super geopolitical, and you had like what was it, the
Sokovia Accords.
Scovia Accords, and like all these different like storylines around just like how the world was accepting the Avengers and stuff. which I found interesting. But yeah, I think it's funny. And of course, Infinity War was, I mean, the kind of the beginning of the end, with the whole Thanos
Oh,
saga and everything like that. So, um, that one we rewatched that one a lot too, to be honest. So
drum roll for number
yeah,
one.
what do you got for number one?
My number one is your number two, Infinity War.
All right, wow.
So we're kind of agreement.
You loved Infinity
Oh,
War then.
yes.
So what was like your favorite part about it? Like, why do you love it so much?
It was really the scene where they were attacking Wakanda. Just seeing how everyone was
Yeah,
battling with each other
yeah,
and kind of
that's pretty
interacting.
awesome.
Oh man, Captain America and Black Panther. You had Thor coming in.
Yeah,
Bring me Thanos. It was just so epic.
that was pretty epic. So I'll give you that one. That one was a really cool. That was a really cool scene. My number
Yep.
one, I'm gonna play the clip just to
Yep.
call it out. But you already said yours. You already ranked this
Yep.
one. But we'll close it out with this.
Assemble.
Yeah.
Wow.
So of course, Endgame.
Oh, can't beat that.
I
The
mean,
best
I
scene.
you know, obviously, yeah. This is probably the one my kids rewatch the most, just because it's the culmination of everything, and you know, it's honestly a pretty, you know, predictable pick. So it's not
No.
that cool of a pick, but
No,
you know, yeah,
it's a culmination of
epic.
it all.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah, and I think the scene. In fact, it was actually really fun. You can actually look up videos on YouTube of audience reactions to this movie. But in particular, the scene where Thor, like, again, spoiler alert. But if you don't know any of these spoilers, you're probably not listening at this point. You know, where he grabs Thor's hammer and, you know, actually uses it in the film and like catches it. I mean, like, I think when I watched it in theaters, I'm pretty sure everyone in the theater went nuts.
Right.
And some people actually recorded the audience reactions of that, and it's pretty fun to watch because like just theaters erupting with like cheers, right? Like of
Absolutely.
that moment is pretty hilarious.
And that's what we're missing. We haven't had an end game type movement since then, which is kind of sad a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I don't know. How do you feel about the current Marvel situation? You know,
Likewise, a little disappointed.
Yeah.
Deadpool Wolverine, if you haven't seen it
I
yet.
haven't. I'm so mad because I wanted to come in here to talk about, but I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. Did you like it? Or?
It was a good return to form.
It's a good return to
I don't
form,
want to
okay.
give any spoilers, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
definitely you need to catch it.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna check it out. I mean, obviously, love Ryan Reynolds and, you know, Hugh Jackman and X-Men and everything. So I think it'll be fun.
Yes.
That's a tough one, right? Because it's rated R, and so I don't let my
Ooh.
kids watch it. So I'm having trouble. I like him. My wife and I will watch it, but like I just haven't gone there with my kids yet. I haven't gone to the Deadpool route yet with my kids.
It is the bloodiest and the most raunchiest out
Exactly.
of the Deadpool movies.
So you know, fun time. But I'll definitely make sure to check it out soon. We got the new Captain America coming in 25 February 14th. It looks like. You know, Thunderbolts. I don't know if you've heard about that one.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
It'll be like the anti-hero sort of vibe.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, like the Suicide Squad of Marvel Universe. And then Phase 6 starts in 2025 in July. You're going to have Fantastic Four, Blade, and then 2026 a new Avengers, Doomsday, and then 2027 Avengers Secret Wars.
Last thing, what do you think of that? Tony
Just-
Stark or Robert Downey?
Oh yeah, of course. Again, spoiler alert, Doctor Doom. I guess they spoiled it,
Yeah.
so we're not spoiling
Yep.
anything. Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom. Look, I think that's gotten actually a lot of like really mixed reviews.
Yes.
I'm all about it though, because I love
Same.
Robert Downey Jr.
Same. I'm
Like,
for it.
I think you can make it work. I mean, the way they tell the stories, I think you can make it work. And you know, more Robert Downey Jr. in the Marvel universe. I'm for
Absolutely. But definitely general audiences are, what's going on? When I told my mom they're bringing him back as a bad guy.
Yeah, I know.
Makes sense.
But I think he's going to be like conflicted, right?
Yes,
Like he's going to be
complicated.
it's complicated, right? So we'll see what happens
Yes.
with that. I threw Captain Marvel on my honorable mention as well. My daughter loves that movie. I think it's a great movie. I love the setting of it, like the was it the 80s or
90s.
the 90s? It was 90s. Like just from the very beginning, she just falls on a blockbuster. Or is
Yeah.
that her? I think that was
Yep,
her, right?
yep.
Yeah, she just crashed into a blockbuster. And my kids are like, "What's that?" Like, I don't even. Well, what's a blockbuster? You know. So
Yeah, I remember
it gave
that,
us a
yeah.
good opportunity to talk about what life used to be like.
Wow.
For movies and stuff before Netflix.
You have to rent them, actually.
Yeah, before Netflix was Netflix, they sent you DVDs in the mail, and I bet that they don't understand that either.
No.
So, interestingly, on that note, quick side note,
Yeah.
but Redbox went out of business. I don't know if you
Oh.
saw that.
No, I thought
So they're
no.
they're shutting all the red boxes
Wow.
down. From what I heard, I think I read this a few weeks ago. But so like even the Blockbuster after
Yeah.
after Blockbuster is now
the
gone.
last thing remaining.
I mean, it's
Wow.
just like so it's just DVDs are out. But and then I threw on just because I don't count these as part of the obviously cinematic universe, but like Loki and WandaVision were a lot of fun.
Those
I
are
mean,
good.
Loki to me was amazing. I haven't loved a lot of the Marvel shows. I'll be
Ugh,
honest.
a
I'm
little
like,
tough.
I actually haven't even watched them all because it's
No,
like,
too hard to follow.
yeah, there's too much going on. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna watch everything. But Loki was a ton of fun, and WandaVision takes a minute to really figure out what's going on.
Very weird.
But it's very weird. But like that one's great too. And they're making a new show off of The Witch.
Agatha All Along.
Yeah,
Comes out next month.
is that next month?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're releasing it like with Halloween.
Yes.
which I think is funny because it's
Exactly.
like so.
And it's a musical, apparently.
Is it really?
Yep, first
Okay. See,
musical.
I don't even know, but I'll watch it. But anyway. So also, don't like Eternals. But anyway, they also didn't close any of those stories. But anyway,
No.
whatever. Hey man, I appreciate
Yes.
you coming on. This is super fun.
It is.
I love geeking out on Marvel, and probably had a few people tune out, so apologies for that. But it was really great learning about what you're doing, and would love to, look forward to continuing working with you. And best of luck
Appreciate
on
it,
that
Josh.
marathon, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you,
luck.
Josh.
Stay hydrated, and stay upright.
I appreciate it. We'll definitely have you out for one of those convocations sometime soon. Bright
No.
early at 5 a.m.
Yeah, that's right. I might do it actually. With that, no current announcements right now. If you have ideas for future shows, you can email pointoforderpod@gmail.com. You can listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, watch, subscribe, or follow on YouTube, X, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook @PointOfOrderPod, and follow myself on X @Joshua_Hoover if you're interested. Matt, thanks so much for coming
Thank
on,
you.
man.
Assembly
Appreciate
member,
it. Yep.
it's always
It's
a pleasure.
Great talking to you.
Thank you.
See you later.